Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the November 10th Blount County Beer Board. Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm may sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles. At this time, Mr. Clerk, would you take roll, please?
Archer. Here. Carver. Here. Caskey. Here. Carter. Here. Daly. Here. Farmer. French.
Here.
Melton. Here. Samples. Here. All right, let's see. You've got 8 present and 1 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, I entertain a motion to set the agenda. So moved by Mr. Caskey, seconded by Mr. Carver. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, like sign, and the motion carries. We'll move to item C, minutes of the October 29th, 2015 meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. So moved by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Mr. Carter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. This time I'll ask for public input on items on the agenda. And seeing no hands, we move to item E, unfinished business. There is none. And we'll move to the business of the day. And at this time we will have 2 public hearings. First public hearing for an off-premises beer permit application of Nicky's Food Mark at 5205 U.S. Highway 411, Maryville, Tennessee. And immediately following that public hearing, we will have a public hearing for an on-premises beer permit application of Uncle Dave's Market at 2942 West Lamar Alexander Parkway, Francisville, Tennessee. And at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Craig Garrett, the attorney for the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the representative of the Paladin Corporations, come forward, please, Mr. Patel. Come forward to the podium, please. Would you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you solemnly swear that the answers and information you provide to this board tonight will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yeah, it is correct.
Okay, Mr. Patel, you filed this application on behalf of your corporation, Paladin Corporation, for a beer permit for off-premises consumption. Is that correct?
Yes.
You put your hand down.
Yeah.
All right. The area that you're seeking the application is in U.S. Highway 411 South. Is that correct?
Yes.
The actual address is 5205 U.S. Highway 411 South, and the structure you're dealing with is a convenient mart.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Yeah.
Are the applications and statistics that you have put in your application for a beer permit true and correct?
Yes.
And you are the owner of this corporation, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Pursuant to the survey that you have provided, the nearest school is Lanier Elementary, just a little shy of 3 miles from you. And no resident is within 300 feet. Is that
Yep,
correct?
that's
There
right.
is a church within 464 feet, which would be in violation of our ordinance. But I understand from the clerk that this property is grandfathered, Mr. Crawford, because there is currently a permit in effect for that location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and Mr. Patel, you understand that?
Yes.
That otherwise, if there hadn't, and you weren't grandfathered,
Yeah.
the board could not grant this. But since it is, that is acceptable. Okay, sir, does any member of the board have any questions for Mr. Patel? Hearing none, anyone from the public here, any questions for the applicant on this permit? All righty, Mr. Chairman, then I would close the public hearing and would suggest to the board that this applicant meets all of the requirements under our ordinance and state law for issuance of this permit.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. At this time, what is the pleasure of the board? Move to approve by Commissioner Samples, second by Mr. Carter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Patel, you will be issued a beer permit, and if you'll Roy, you can tell him.
Mr. Patel, if you will come by the county clerk's office tomorrow, you can pick up your permit. There are some other fees that you're gonna have to pay, and you'll just have to pay those at that time. Thank you.
Rhonda has a question.
Excuse me,
Oh.
that's right, we're closed. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. It'll be Thursday.
That's fine. My store closing day is ending December 8th.
Okay, well, any time before that.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
At this time, I'll turn it to our attorney for the county, Mr. Garrett, again, for the second hearing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Second hearing is for Uncle Dave's Market at 2942 West Lamar, Alexander. A representative of that establishment come forward to the podium, please. You are Mr. Bailey, is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey, Mr. Chairman, before I start the public hearing, I reviewed Mr. Bailey's application, noticed that on his application, he had checked that he is seeking an on-premises permit without seeking for any off-premises sales, and I found that to be kind of unusual, so I questioned Mr. Bailey before the meeting started, and he said no, in fact, he intends to sell at this convenient mart. He desires to sell packaged beer to go, and he would like to modify the application to seek on and off premises. Is that correct, Mr. Bailey?
Sure. I mean, since they've already approved the, well, if it's approvable on the on-premise, I guess, go ahead and do both, I guess, I assume.
I understand you have no immediate plans for any on-premises.
No, I don't have any immediate plans, just the packaging.
Okay,
See, that's what I was in misunderstanding. I guess on and off premises threw me off, I guess, about what it was actually.
Mr. Chairman, I would note that the public notice that was published for an on-premises application. That generally creates, I think, what we've seen, more public interest than an off-premises. And I guess we would need to decide if the board is willing to allow Mr. Bailey to go forward on modifying to also request off-premises sales, or do we need to reschedule this hearing and come back and republish the notice? I think one thing to look at is to see if we have anybody here to oppose. Is there anybody here in opposition to this application?
Mr. Garrett, before we determine what the pleasure of the board is, I'd like to ask Mr. Samples if we've run into this situation before, and since the permit goes through his office, what his...
You mean Mr. Crawford?
I'm sorry, Mr. Crawford. I got you, Roy.
Not in the 26 years I've been county clerk, we've had this situation where,
Ask him what you want to.
now, we have at meetings in the past allowed the applicant to change from on to off premises. At the meeting. It's normally done at the, the public hearing is set. So at the first meeting. But we have done that, but.
Have done that in the past.
Mr. Samples?
I'd like to ask the clerk a question. Go ahead. Does this location currently have an on-premise license?
Has none.
Has none. So it bothers me that he intended to do an off-premise to start with, but he checked on, and now all of a sudden he wants to do both. I don't have a problem with voting to change it to off, but I would want it to be re-advertised if he's gonna do both, and chose to do an on permit as well.
I just need it to be the off-premise, where I can sell the package. I just told him if it was available.
So you're not trying to do on and off?
No, I just told him if that's the way it needed to be, that would be fine, you know.
Yeah,
as
he
well.
indicated to me his plans were to do off only, but since he had checked on, he would ask the board to not to do both. But I think you're willing to not to convert your petition to an off premises only, so you can just sell package
Yes.
beer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that?
I don't want him to have to pay just because the check mark's in the wrong place. I don't have a problem with him switching to off. I have a problem with him wanting to do both.
Okay, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I would make a
Mr.
motion that we accept the change to off only.
Okay, everyone understands the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Caskey. And everyone understands the motion that the applicant is willing to change the on-premises to an off-premises permit only.
Mr. Chairman, is that just to make the change, or is that to approve the permit as well?
This is just to make the change.
And then we'll have the public
Okay.
hearing after we
Right.
make the change. Yes.
All those, having heard the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Therefore, it has been moved to an off-premises permit only, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Bailey, if you'll raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the answers and information you provide to this board tonight will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge or belief?
Yes.
Sir, we have established that you are now seeking an off-premises permit. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your establishment is on US 321 down towards Friendsville at 2942 West Lamar Alexander Parkway. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that is a convenient mark, you've been in business, or it's been there for a considerable period of time. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'll ask you if the information and statistics in your application are true and correct? Are they?
Okay.
Are they
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, they are.
All right. And according to your application and the GPS distances provided by the Blount County Sheriff's Department, the closest church is United Grove United Methodist. It's 1,174 feet. The nearest school being Union Grove Elementary is 5,314 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the closest resident is 886 feet, and that's some relative. I don't know if that's yours or David and Nancy Bailey. Is that some of your family?
That's my father.
That's your father, okay.
Yes.
But no residents within 300 feet.
No, sir.
All righty. Any members of the board have questions for Mr. Bailey?
Is the church distance not 2,000?
It's 1,000. Yeah, it's 1,000. All right. Anybody in the audience here to ask any questions or comments on this application? Mr. Chairman, hearing none, I would close the public hearing and suggest to the board that this applicant does meet the requirements of our county beer ordinance and state law for issuance of the permit.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. At this time, what is the pleasure of the board? Move to approve by Commissioner Melton, seconded by Mr. Carter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, like sign. The motion carries. Mr. Bailey, you will be issued a permit for off-premises sales only.
Thank you.
Roy, I'll leave you for instructions.
All right, same thing I told him. Thursday,
Yes, sir.
anytime after about 10 o'clock, you can come by and pick up. the
Sure.
permit. There will be some fees to pay.
Okay. Do you know about how much they are to just bring a
I'm
check?
sorry, I don't.
I'll just bring a
It's
check,
your
take care of
annual beer fee. It's $100 for the year, but it's prorated based on the number of months left in
Okay.
this year.
Sure.
So it's gonna be about 12, 15 bucks.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Mr. Melton, seconded by Ms. Daly.